Just to do a sort of session on personal development and sort of goal planning and kind of how the two tie in. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I used to work in education in the local area and sort of seeing holes and gaps where there often wasn't. I decided to set up something myself, and that's largely where my interest lies. Sort of the training development was in that role, and sort of where the local community would like some out of. So a few things I kind of hope to discuss, and emphasis on the discuss. I didn't want to just stand here talking through the whole thing myself. I kind of wanted an opportunity for you to share ideas with each other. It doesn't have to be anything too heavy, but you're probably some more the experts and stuff of being self-employed or a business and running things yourself more so than I am, so I'm just sort of prompting some ideas. My startup, I'm not going to mention too much about it, but it's kind of where my passion came from and sort of led to that, so occasionally I'll mention it. You'll see why. So this came from sort of an identified gap. Now what happened, I used to work in education, and it was a specific role I had there was for business services. We used to run very much workshop-based things, either for businesses or for individuals coming in as a group. Now the problem was you were kind of delivering to a script. You came in, they knew roughly what you're going to cover, and that's why they were interested, that's why they came to you. But as I used to say to them, depends on what level it was, they would only get, say, 50% of the basic, 40% out the next session and 30% out the other, because so much was covered that they wouldn't necessarily use all those areas themselves throughout their sort of working career, whether it be Excel, Word, etc. So it's because you sort of say to them, you may not be using this now, you may find it useful in the future, but the nature of workshops covering everyone's needs, it's not going to be skills you're all going to use all the time. And this is where I came across, how could I change that session? So I used to cram everything into 4 hours. And people are falling behind and saying, don't worry, I can go over it briefly myself, but it's in the guide. The guidance in the guide, the task in the guide, I'm sticking to the guide, so you don't need to make notes and lose that time. But there's going to be a 2-hour session at the end of the day where you can practice yourself, you can try doing something in nature as if you're at work with the skills you've learnt, and if you have a section where I haven't covered things you may need, I can sort of do an ad hoc session at the end of the day, and you sort of get random questions thrown at you, you get some experts asking some really detailed formulas, or you just get some people stuck and they just wanted their mindset changed on where it might have gone wrong during the day. But it was all coming down to workshops can't always necessarily, in qualification as well, cover the needs of a person that is able, but they have more sort of ad hoc needs, hence my startup. And as I kind of just highlighted, qualifications do have their place. The sort of specific training, research and experience and the support you get are also very important as well. We're going to go into detail about that. Not everyone needs as much support of others, and I'm kind of largely guessing that most people in here, if you're working for yourselves, don't necessarily feel, and mostly don't all the time, need support from others. But I wouldn't easily dismiss it, because there is still a different type of support you can get from your peers. Others, like in my previous role, are kind of a bit of a training frenzy. People sort of throw ideas at you, and you sort of, especially a very digital person, you get passionate about things. You end up looking into loads of things, thinking it's going to benefit you. But if it's not aligned to a goal, it's kind of a lot of time spent, or you lose interest at some point because it's not attached to something. Why are you doing that training? Why are you doing that thing? Why are you looking into it? Actually, if you've got excited but it isn't specifically attached to something, you can lose interest in time very quickly. And for others that aren't particularly interested by training, it's convincing them the reason for doing it is because you've attached it to something they're going to find useful. And it's something that I found teachers didn't do very well. Come in to lesson, you should be here, got to do this, qualification, gone. Actually attaching it to something and aligning things along the route is more than likely going to suit students, or in our case, a passion to sort of learn and willingness to listen. And that's going to a lot in the workplace. You'll find this way as well. I'm not going to highlight qualifications too much, but what I did want to say is if you're working in apprenticeships, or if you do end up doing a formal course yourself, just because the unit or module doesn't seem useful at the time, there could be a point later on down the road it could be useful. There can also be, if you're talking to kids, another reason why that unit has a purpose, and it could be maybe it covers a maths or English criteria. Actually, just because it's not interesting as part of the course at the time, maybe they needed to feed something in to make sure the maths and English aspect was covered to get those skills going, more so than that's not very interesting use of a computer. It's not something they're going to use in a computer sense. It's applying other skills as well. So if you hear your kids moaning about it, there is very much background kind of reasons for doing things. So I just want to sort of bear that in mind. Structures courses, if you've sort of been self-employed or you know people that have taught themselves, especially if they're sort of younger and they're still, like a really big path ahead of them career-wise. I will say a structured course is great for gap filling. You may be really good at certain things, and in career could go into all sorts of avenues, but actually doing a structured course and sort of gap fill, and then allow you, of course, to have the credits to go on to the next level of course, the next level of work, and so forth. So it's sort of something to consider in that sense. And of course, again, just generally build up confidence and sort of allow them to go further onto more courses. It sort of ties in a little bit to goals. It's not very much of a refresher, but it's sort of all going to lead in as I go along. Setting targets, or sort of small goals and goalposts, and sort of having a plan that has these allows you to achieve your main goal. And your main goal is to be making more money, getting your business further, getting more clients in. You kind of have to see how do I get there, and achieving those little goals. Actually, then you've achieved something at little points, almost like kind of agile working to get that sort of end goal, which you're after, either to make more money or to grow a business and start a business and so forth. I would also is something I've been a bit more focused on recently. Goals can be personal things, so it doesn't necessarily have to be workplace individual, i.e. for your role, and workplace sort of for the whole business and team. They can be personal things, and though teachers are meant to be very much about PDP and personal development, I didn't see enough evidence in my previous role that gave me the motivation to do it. It's not until I happened to be living with somebody who was training for triathlon, and suddenly realised for him to fit everything in, a full-time job, when to eat, when to exercise and so forth, he'd actually kind of put all that into PDP, so he knew when he could do things, when he could see his girlfriend, when he knew when to eat, for that to digest, to go out for a run. Otherwise it becomes a series of excuses, you didn't fit that and done that and so forth. So there's actually someone like him putting that into a PDP, or a non-academic person, compared to a very much an academic which talks about it, doesn't necessarily always do it, was more sort of motivation to think, actually, if I want to achieve my goals, I've got to kind of have a plan or a personal development plan. I don't know if any of you have done an OU course, but this is something I've heard come up quite a few times over the years, is share your goals or your plans with other people. If it's at home, then let other people know what you're planning to do, because then they know not to interrupt you, they kind of know what days you're free, what you're trying to achieve, so you kind of make that a bit open. And same in the workplace as well. You may find if necessarily people can't necessarily help you, or not to help you, but you can possibly stop them from being a barrier. So if they know you're doing something at certain times, then they know that that time's when you're trying to focus on something, or why people are there. So a little bit of transparency, either in a personal sense or a work sense, can sort of allow you to sort of better achieve your goals. And so something the OU sort of says, when they do a 10 or 16-hour course you would do a week, they sort of say, tell your friends, tell your family, allow time for personal space, and sort of know what you've got to achieve. It's very easy to kind of fall behind if you're trying to achieve something. So, kind of one of the things I want to ask, there's a series of questions going on to get feedback. Did or does your sort of business plan allow for sort of planning and retraining? And this can be yourself and others. A bit curious. Does anyone sort of allow for sort of training and personal development plans? Any ideas for anyone? No?
I keep intending to do it, but then not actually finding the time to do it or finding reasons
that
to
is,
do it.
yeah.
I do it regularly. It's something I got into a year ago because I've discovered, because I'm in the SEO marketing space, by keeping up and training, I can get ideas for the next business. It seems like I've recently started marketing voice engine optimization. Everybody's on SEO, but video is the new thing. If I hadn't gone on a training session on a webinar, I would never known about it. It's about 6 months ago, I thought, let's go. Checked around Sussex, nobody else is advertising on the websites, nobody's hardly pushing it. Lots of guys are training. So yeah, couldn't agree more. Training leads to business ideas, which then leads into actual business.
I mean, I can see what Mike's saying, the sort of lack of time, but I definitely would sort of try and find some time for it, because it could be your next one, of course, especially if you've got a bit of downtime and do anything. I spoke to sort of Sarah recently about sort of, had a little bit of time looked in sort of Power BI and so forth. If you've got time, how can you make most of that time? But it's kind of invaluable, because it can bring a next set of clients. It can be just generally be an update as well, which is what I think is mentioned. Did anyone else have any?
Well, if I'm lucky enough to, I go on the Apple Developers Conference.
Okay.
So I try and do that if I can get a ticket, because it gives me a week where I'm just focusing on trying to learn new stuff, and it gets me meeting other developers. So it's it gives me a boost really. So I try to go for that, but it's not easy to get a ticket.
No, fair enough. I mean, there's a whole array of things in there. Maybe do a few networking conferences myself. As you said, it gives you the opportunity to sort of meet others and talk with them. There's opportunity, they want to sell things to you and sell ideas. It's got the roadmap principle as well. If something's really interesting, you think a niche that's coming up, and you're saying it's not in Worthing yet, and there's something coming, think that could be good for the area, it kind of gives you that kind of forefront as well. And I'm going to need to allow some time over the next couple of months to monitor that in the news or to retrain myself. So you kind of, the two together means I know what's coming up. Do I need to allow time to train for that? Or is that bit for me? Where else can my focus go? Maybe this is an area I wanted to focus on. I'm now going to change my direction because the company and the area I was looking at is changing beyond an area I don't want. So it could work the other way. It makes you sort of change your goalposts. Yeah. Good. I'm going to move on. Thank you, Phil. Okay, so just wanted to share as examples of recent goals. They are a bit loose because they come directly from something I keep at home, but I hope that snaps up a little bit. So one of them being a career current goal. So I'm currently in a proper job, not just myself. So it's a case of finding internal opportunities. I don't have to go too far, there's going to be internal opportunities coming up. And how am I to go about that? By promoting myself and increasing my current set. So if I know there's posts out that I'm interested in a current company, what skills do I have to have, or experience, or what software do I look into to help me get that post? And it could be by doing a bit of shadowing in and out work, but that'd be something I'm looking at. Another goal, what if I want to look for sort of more interesting roles outside that company, other companies that might interest me, i.e. could be Fresh Egg, for example. So what do I need to do to sort of get that goal? Researching jobs, doing a little bit of planning, again gaining skills, doing a bit of gaining experience, and again probably a bit of shadowing. Specifically for my startup, one of my goals would be to increase my customer base. And do I need to clarify my target audiences? Was my original target audience not working for me? Did I not push it enough? How do I find a target audience that really fits what I want to offer? Or do I need to change my offer? And obviously promote. And then of course I've added a personal button here. I need to increase my potential for personal and professional opportunities. So getting out there more, doing more fun things. How do I get out there? In my case, something as simple as just purchasing a car. So I've only learned to drive recently, so to get out there a bit more and do more fun things, I need to purchase a car. So why highlight and support personal development? So various small businesses and sole traders sometimes struggle to get going. And you sort of see somebody come up with an idea or they give it a go. Doesn't always kick off. And I sort of looking around the room, most of you have been going quite a while, either working for yourself or working in small businesses. That's fine, but there's a lot of people which don't go through that far. Or they don't make as much money as they originally hoped they would. It can be because they took on too much. They may find they started with somebody, or one person dropped out, they didn't realise how much was required for a role. Or they're in a position that they just haven't adapted, i.e. they haven't sort of allowed for that sort of training to help them adapt to fit the role. And that's why I kind of think a plan and personal development can help with that. If you set up from the beginning, you have to allow to kind of change it as well. Actually simple as ticking off things as you know you're doing them, so you see what you've got around to doing, what you haven't, and sort of just looking at it even monthly, just to kind of see how am I actually achieving, what's working, what's not, and a little bit of reflection. So kind of leading on to that, when can you last remember doing any type of training? Now I see that in a loose sense, so I kind of take any answer in regards to training, but I'm quite interested in the mix of training you might have done. So quickly, anyone hasn't spoken already, I really don't mind. When did you last remember to do any type of training?
Training's a kind of funny.
Yeah, I've left it for that reason. Yeah.
I track a lot of websites. I keep an eye on technology changes and things like that. I can't remember the last time I sat in a room and had someone train me on something.
Sure.
But
I'll accept
online training, for example.
I'll accept that. So I wanted to keep this as loose as possible to really see your definition of training, because I would have said just as much that sort of following something, keeping up to date with the industry and in the areas you're interested in is just as much training. It's whether or not you're making a conscious effort to do that.
I think as well with technology, it moves so fast. Very often there isn't training. We've just got a bunch of documentation.
Exactly.
And sometimes, if you might be the first person to pick this thing up, then you could end up doing the training someone else. Also, you come to things like this where you meet experts in different fields, and that's really good. If I had an Apple question, I'll go straight to Paul, because he knows where he lives in that world, so you can't be everywhere at once. You've got to pick and choose for your training as well.
So yours is basically sort of following industry and following sort of software.
Well, for a long time, I was a Flash guy, and that disappeared. But you got to see it coming and go, okay, I see the cliff. You have to, pick up enough skills that you're still employable when that thing falls away and then you become something else. But,
so you adapted, so kind of as a part to a previous slide then.
If I hadn't been keeping an eye out for how to be unemployed or dead or burgers or something. I don't know.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else? I think others.
Yeah, also in today, like YouTube is a great training tool. I do something every week to forward what I'm doing in the business, whether it's reading a book on business skills or watching a YouTube video or whatever. I do something that I hope can learn something to advance the business somewhere.
I mean, to be honest with you, that was kind of the cheeky answer I was expecting somebody to throw in to try and catch me out, to say we haven't done qualifications for years or something like that. And I was expecting almost the first one to be YouTube, because it is such a strong tool. What I will say in a planning sense, and I'll go into this in a minute, it's wanting to cover those areas. It doesn't matter what you use to cover them. Whether you've consciously made an effort on YouTube to find that specific thing, and recording that you've done it, and not necessarily keeping a link or keeping some notes from it. But yeah, I mean, YouTube is one that I swear by. I mean, I think I trained myself in most of my Microsoft training through YouTube. They just gave me a spec and you just had to go out and do it yourself.
And Udemy as well, with their online courses, they're great.
Cheers.
And
Anyone
Audible
else?
as well is quite good. Audible is quite good as well for like business books and things like that. So you just listen to on the train.
There's so much these days that you've got access to that you didn't have in the past. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Did you want to do that as well?
I'm doing a full stack web development course at Ford Institute.
Okay, good.
It's from Dublin, and
Is it free or paid for, sorry?
it's paid.
Yes, yeah.
And after that, I'll get a diploma in software development from Edinburgh University.
Okay.
Evenings.
no, but I mean, I was after that full spectrum. So the spectrum I was after was how easy it is to use YouTube for something and sort of take responsibility for your own training, follow the industry, and again, the kind of full-time qualifications. The funny thing on the slide in a minute. Let's have a look. One thing comes up first, actually. I mentioned why some businesses don't kick off. So I decided, I'm not a little bit lazy, but in this instance, I decided to do a little bit of research to chuck in the slide, so it's not just me talking. So why businesses fail? Just one reason, and it's from the crunch sites. Sometimes people are afraid to ask for help. So find your mentor to look up to, and who's in a similar industry to you, and he'll provide you with the experience you need to take your business from strength to strength. If you haven't found someone who fits the bill, join a support group, such as local chamber of commerce, or form a pro business, and they'll give you the opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs and gain valuable insight. And I thought fit in the group a little bit as well. Also, there's a range of government schemes that offer support for new businesses, including growth vouchers, which provide money, etc., and cash flow. Also for developing staff, so you can actually might be able to get grants if you're working in a team of people. So actually, if you think there's a gap you have and somebody's eager, but actually, can you afford to kind of actually lose that person for a period of time, or there's no incentive? Maybe there's something to get for us. And the bit I like the end of marketing and making the most of digital technology. So when I saw that article, I couldn't resist it.
Can I just chip in there?
Certainly.
You've said a mentor who's in your sphere. My mentor, a guy I've known for 30 odd years, nothing to do with digital, and he's brilliant. But he's a clever guy, very senior business in London, but he has questions that I wouldn't think of.
So approach.
I mean, he's very good for business structure and actually how to develop and run a small company. But he knows nothing about what we do in this room. And I'll put something up on my website, I'm doing this, and I go, why? What's that all about? Because he comes in from the other side, he's my customer.
Okay.
And he will say, that didn't make sense. So I would say for a mentor, brilliant idea, because I love this guy, but it doesn't have to be somebody. If they've got matching skills in just in a general business sense, somebody outside your own area can be just as useful.
Just make you think about the things you hadn't thought of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. No, cheers for that. The development of others. So many of us work with other people. I'm presuming to some degree must be doing some form. Just trying to think of those words. If you're lucky not to, then even better. And some of you obviously may be in a position to actually take on staff and employ others. But you yourselves may actually be a sort of a survivor and somebody that adapts, somebody that can take responsibility for your own training. But do consider that not everyone can sort of functions in this way. Different people have different learning styles, different learning needs. They may have had a previously bad learning experience, so that they may need a bit more of an incentive or encouragement to crack on with learning. So just because you think something should be easy and just jump in, teach yourself, there may be a bit more thought that needs to go into that, and maybe you need to sort of attach it to sort of goals. Maybe they need to see why they're doing that thing is related to that project, which is related to where the business wants to go with an offer coming up. So give them a little bit of depth to you're doing this because people can very easily, busy days and things going lose sight of why they're doing that thing for. They just kind of gives them a little bit of encouragement. So I was kind of curious. We covered this to bits. I was hoping a fresh egg person would be in here. How do you or your business help others for their continued training? Kind of might have already covered this actually, really. Out of curiosity, have any of you helped to support others with training and development?
Yeah, part of my role, because I'm a contractor, so we're in there with a small number of permanent staff, and part of the job is to sort of make sure that they're up to speed with what we're doing. So a little bit of kind of mentoring or pair programming and that sort of thing.
So that's as a contractor. So
Yeah.
that's just the project to run. You have to be able to offer that.
We
kind
need
of
to be able
support people.
to walk away from the project at the end, and the permies need to be able to sort of understand what we've done and why, and take it on. So not that that's likely to happen anytime soon, because they just can't recruit people. But
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I hadn't actually thought of it from that side of things. I was begging for a fresh egg person, being honest. I knew what kind of part their offer was and some of the stuff on their website and some of the things they talked about previously. But,
Yeah, I ran courses because with my pitching for the SEO work and the marketing work, a lot of small businesses just don't have the budget. It's not beyond the, so I every year or so will run seminars, because throughout the year I'll find lots of people who I'll talk to say, love the idea, I'd like to get more visitors to my website, but can't afford to go away. So once a year I'll run a seminar and I'll get sort of 15, 20 of them come along just to show them some basics that they can do.
okay.
So yeah,
So that, is that a specific? Is that a large part of what you want to do? Is that just as an offset?
it's an offset, so it's an offshoot from it.
Okay, that's interesting. Anyone else? Brad, no, thank you. There are two answers I wasn't really planning to have. Again, quite gutted, fresh up with it, but still, I'll have to have some. Because they got some really good training materials on their website, which is kind of what spotted me for part of that question. So they've written some good papers and research, and I've taken July off, but I intend in August sort of kind of get through those papers slowly because they do look really interesting. Get a chance to have a look. So I didn't really want to highlight this much, but this kind of all incorporates the kind of why I went in this direction and the kind of steps from education that I thought were sort of missing where this whole was. I tend to find ad hoc training is kind of a rarer thing that's normally offered. It's very much sort of seminars, webinars, and kind of a set thing that's done. I think largely because they're not ideal or cost effective to deliver. It's sort of something you can't really plan so well for, because you're trying to meet the other person's needs down to the T as and when they ask you a question. You can kind of get a bit of an insight beforehand, but generally you have to be willing to completely adapt through the whole session. And as a trainer, if I was looking for somebody else, that you'd have to ask for so much money to be able to sort of make it cost effective, and it's just not a thing to do. But as far as I'm concerned, it came from feedback. It came from feedback from sort of business services. It came from feedback from ICT functional skills. Different people just have completely different needs. They've all had completely different experiences. For example, we're using Excel, Word, Outlook, and emails, and they kind of built up their own kind of, they can do it, but they can't necessarily do it for a role or a purpose. So it's kind of, it's all very ad hoc to kind of gap fill, and again, keep them interested and sort of talk to them in such a way as they can see what's going to benefit them. And it's not always a workshop or a classroom that can do that. Also, sort of a lead on from that, again to make it relevant and for people who are more able, current process and task analysis is another route that I kind of spotted in my previous role, and I'm kind of loosely offering as well. And so uncovering just areas for improvement. They may be completely able, they can do the job, but could they do the job better? Could they do it in a different way? Could they do it quicker? You know, I've worked in a department where they were able to do something in Excel or a series of tasks online. Well, they didn't realise there was loads of shortcuts and a completely different way of doing it. They were doing things in such a long way for 10 years, actually we knocked half that task on the head. And it's just like, well, actually we now freed up all these hours from you, and it's a pretty cost-effective thing to do. But there's also an aspect of, yes, that's how I identify things, but many people, if they're able, just don't realise they need a training. You'd almost have to sit there, watch them do their job for possibly a day, and say, actually, I've spotted these 5 opportunities, and they're completely going to change your day of working. And if they've been there a long time, that can make their job a little bit more interesting. But you'd really have to sit there and monitor them, because you couldn't have it from discussion, because they don't know what to say, and they might not say certain things or know what's important to the role. You watching them do it, it's going to say, actually, I've got ideas coming across, and sometimes that helps, especially in the workplace. And again, setting alignment to personal goals. Again, when people have their reviews during the years, or if it's a personal startup, it's a case of what is it you're trying to achieve. Let you see the journey you're making and begin to achieve that and do it better at the same time, allowing yourself to make more money. and at the end, just making them more motivated. It shouldn't be too much longer. I can't see a clock. Resources. Now we did mention some just now, so it's kind of halfway unexpected. But again, we want to cover a few others. There are many free and lots of costed resources, as some of you know. Examples include, now again, I like the fact that Fresh Egg mentioned the Open University last time, so I would say they do a lot of free courses. Have you heard of Open Learn? So that's the Open University, where they offer 4 courses broken down into units. Occasionally, those units can be a taster to sort of join a course later on, but those tasters are free. Or if a course becomes sort of slightly old and mildly redundant, then they break those units down because they've done a newer version of, and they're just free to do online. And you can have a profile and get little certificates so you've done them and so forth. Now, Open Learn is kind of where the free units go, and they're very easy to use. They can be anything from 8 hours to 46 hours, all at different levels, and they can just be good sort of tasters into different things. Code Academy, most people heard of Code Academy. Very easy to use. You can learn your HTML, your SQL, your JavaScript and so forth. It's got better over the years. It really has got better in the sense of what they offer and letting you know why that course is useful. But there's also workshops. Do look out for the workshops as well. I haven't got around to it, just because my role's quite varied in the past. But the idea being, once you've done training and you're doing the coding to go along, a workshop allows you to sort of apply it to a project a bit more. Seems like, okay, this needs doing, how am I going to use those skills to do it? I think you can work with a team and so forth. It's more of sort of practical use of. Has anyone been to the Barclays Eagle Labs in Brighton? You haven't? Okay. I lived in Brighton for a little while. I did swing by, and they do everything from sort of security talks. You can use their 3D printers. And they sort of have a series of talks on different days you can go to, and I believe they're free. But they've also got some various hardware that you can use either for your businesses as well. And obviously there's a bit of a cost associated with that, but again they can show you how to use the kit. So if it's something you're interested in buying, you can see it being used for its practical purposes in advance. And that's near, is it Beckett,
Opposite the Duke of York's.
Yes, there we go. I was just trying to think what it's called. It's the old Barclays Bank by the Duke of York's. That's on the corner. But they are very friendly in there, and there's various across the UK, but there's one in Brighton. Networking groups and talks, it seemed like the obvious thing to mention. Has anyone heard of the funded level 2 certificates and courses? So places like the place I worked at locally, and a lot of other institutions and colleges offer level 2 certificated courses. And the idea being is to sort of, if you know someone that's trying to change career, you can sort of get retail, business administration, ICTs offered by some people, but then it also goes the healthcare route. So if you know a lot of people in healthcare that are trying to earn a bit of money, it's a whole series of sort of mini courses. They normally only take 8 weeks to go through, and you used to be able to do a paper version. If you can't still, I think they've tried most of them online now, but they're just very short courses for tasters.
Aspire Sussex deliver them.
I think some of them do. I do. It's a whole
I
range.
know that because they deliver them in my premises, and I teach some of them.
Okay, so they actually, you actually deliver them. It's not just the workbook you do yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so the alternative is if you can't make it to these sessions, you can actually either do it online via some institutions, or you can do it. Sometimes you get the book version, and it's just a case of you see an assessor occasionally. They check to see how you're doing. You read through the chapters, you fill in the questions at the end, your assessor checks it, at the end you get a level 2 certificate. In some cases, if a lesson is needed, then you can do it via Google. What's it called? Accuracy?
World Nutrition Centre.
Right, so just for the camera. Right. But yeah, I've done a few of them. So I think I did information, advice and guidance, team leader, business administration. The one I know wasn't offered locally that I found quite interesting was lean management. Lean management. And that was just level 2, and it just gave you enough of an insight, and if you wanted to take a step further, then you could pay for level 3 elsewhere and so forth. But again, and then they're all credit based as well. So if for any reason you anyone had a gap in that level 2 knowledge, and even some level 3, you could possibly fill in some of those credits using these free courses. And they're funded by the government. Other MOOCs, so massive open online courses, and that's why I asked earlier if your computer course was paid for or not, because a lot of MOOCs are either new tasters or redundant courses, which are normally looked after by an assessor as well. So it's still marks, you're still given something at the end. Possibly the only thing you'll pay for is to have yourself certificated afterwards. But all the course content is quite often free. And your colleagues, of course, training peers and such. Briefly on notes, hope I'm not going too over. Quick tips: make notes, make sure they're easy to find. One thing I do myself, is I know so many people do make written notes. Now I know the process of writing helps you remember as well, which is fair dues. But if I do want to refer back to something, especially if I found a decent online resource or a few key things I know I'm going to use again, I put them in either my business plan or a Word document. I don't know if anyone's ever played with chapters, like a book in a Word document. You can use the referencing section, and I basically, everything that's been given a header 1, you can add it to the chapter section, and then the first page basically has those headings. You press Control, and it takes you straight to that section. So you can have a list of resources, a list of things you've learned in the past, a list of contacts, a list of local businesses you think might be useful. Whatever the case may be, you can chuck them into a Word document. Of course, the alternative is, if you notice a specific word, and you've been very specific, I found out about this, it's going to be useful, Control F allows you to find something in documents or web pages. Always incorporating practice your new skills as soon as possible. So if you think it's relevant and you've done a course for a reason, then try and apply it to something as soon as possible. It kind of gives you the incentive to use it, and you may even find the next day you've got to go back on what you learned because you know you came across something, but it's as you're applying it, you need to make sure you're certain what you're doing or learn a bit more. Not everyone does this, but keep the evidence, which is kind of self-explanatory, but try building a portfolio, especially if you're self-employed doing contract work. If you've made something really good, whether it be a front-end page or a code that does something specific, or as part of the training you're practicing something and you think that's going to be useful, I would try and keep a portfolio of some of these things. You know, you can usually remember you've done it, but as time goes by it's easy to forget. Sometimes writing down that you've done the training isn't always enough, and having a kind of a visual portfolio of something you've created from that training is better to show for somebody as well. It's so easy to do online training, everyone goes, oh, I can do this, this and this. If you've got something evidences that as part of a project I applied my Prince 2 training and this is the layout and changes we've made to such and such structure, then again that shows you actually applied what you learned to something, and it shows you a better understanding of it. And revisit when you can, especially if it's something you use regularly, and reflect. So what worked, what didn't work, what are you going to do about it? Good Lord, I still don't know that. I'm going to be quick. What personal development says about somebody, willingness to learn, adapt. The skills are up to date, including those that actually learn and research. So that's quite often taken for granted. So if you know in a role, a lot of new software is coming up, but actually they have to have the skills to learn constantly and brush up themselves. Yes, they have some of the skills, but what actually are their learning and researching skills like? They've been doing things recently, they should be quite good. A stronger interest in the role, obviously, in the sector, and the sector knowledge is up to date, which was over John. I still swear by LinkedIn in most instances, so it's for your own purpose as much as an open purpose. It reminds you that you did this training last year. It's not just for everyone else to see you did that training last year. Who did you do it with, and for how long did it take, and where did you take it? So the kind of LinkedIn profile is just as good for yourself for your reference as it is releasing what bits you want for others to see. Oh, there we go. Conclusion. So these are just ideas, different aspects, which is why it's quite a loose and wide talk, will work for different people. So different people have different strengths. So the idea was trying to cover as many areas as possible. Think about what works for you, what works for your business, what works for your team. Thank you for your feedback and sharing. I hope to have multiple posts. Thank you very much. Right. Cheers.